So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Fall Catskill Regional Invasive Species Partnership virtual meeting. I'm John Thompson. I'm going to be the facilitator of the meeting today, and I'll show a few slides about CRISP. On the screen in front of you is my email address, the CRISP website address, our Facebook page, and our Twitter. If you check our website, for the most part, we're going to be putting our events as we get them lined up. Also, if you subscribe to our listserv, we usually post our events there and trainings and things that we're doing and information that we want to pass along. If you follow us on Facebook, that's a great way to get notified when we add new events. On the agenda today, we'll have a presentation by Maria Moscali on beech leaf disease in New York. And we'll get a lot of important updates about what's going on with CRISP and partner updates toward the end of the meeting. As an icebreaker, I ask people to enter into the chat your name and the last species that you entered into IMAP invasive, so you can get a sense of who is tuned in and what they've been recording, at least recently. Just a reminder to please remember to mute yourselves, as feedback and background noise can interfere with others who are speaking. And there's closed captioning available. It should be at the bottom of your screen. There should be a CC icon. If you click on it, you could get either a transcript or closed captioning along the bottom of your screen, which is helpful if you're having trouble with volume. So first, I'd like to move to our next slide and show you what is on the agenda for today. And we're going to start out with me giving some updates on CRISP and actually showing some of our accomplishments from the last 5 years. And then we'll talk about what we're hoping to do in the next 5 years as we're under a 5-year contract. And our guest speaker today will be Maria Moscali. As I mentioned, she'll be giving a talk on beech leaf disease in New York. So we're thankful to have her here today. And then we'll have some partner updates, and I'll go through them as they are on the screen here. And I know some of those people are going to be sharing some slides. So we'll have an update from one person and organization, and then move on to the next one and the next one, so on. And then I expect by 3:30 or so, we'll probably be wrapped up. If anybody else has any updates that I didn't put on here, you'll have an opportunity to give an update at the end. So let's talk about CRISP a little bit. We are under a 5-year contract, as all the PRISMs generally are. And these are some of the accomplishments that we put together. The Catskill Center is the host organization of CRISP. They're based out of Arkville in Delaware County. And the Catskill Center put together a proposal submitted to DEC for the next 5-year contract, which looks like it will be awarded to the Catskill Center. And in the process of that, we put together some information on what CRISP did in the last 5 years. So a lot of this work was done by my colleague Dan Snyder-Nerp, who's also on the call today. And some of it was done by our partners. So thank you all for contributing to all the things that we were able to accomplish in the last 5 years. We couldn't do it without partners, definitely. So when you put all the numbers together, we actually accomplished quite a lot, and some of the numbers are pretty eye-opening for a staff of 2 people. But like I said, our partners contributed, so and a lot of it is thanks to you. So we led since 2017, and this doesn't include the programs, all the programs that we've led this year, but over the last 5 years, we led 252 programs that include the trainings that we did, and those were for 23,905 participants. We conducted 106 trainings for 1,322 participants. A lot of those trainings were training people how to use IMAP invasives. It was how to do early detection. It was how to use best management practices. We subcontract with a lot of organizations, including the Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they did outreach to at least 155,000 people. These are just the numbers that we tracked. But throughout the CRISP region, Cornell Cooperative Extension has been a really important partner to do outreach through their own channels to people that live in our region. And we did a lot of early detection. We surveyed 4,224 acres in both early detection and in surveying for invasive species in general. Dan, I'll credit Dan with this. He eradicated 5 giant hogweed sites. And we had a 3-year grant from DEC for a strike team. They were able to work on several invasive species on the DEC campground and at some other sites. They've finished up for the season, and that grant has actually finished up. It's 3 years. So thanks to them, we've been able to survey in all of the DEC campgrounds and a lot of other sites, including those campgrounds. And I wanted to mention, I've been looking at some of the numbers of the people that we interact with, and a lot of the early detection and rapid response and other work that we do is on private land. So we're regularly working with about 60 landowners a year, either getting permission to access their property for any of the things that we're doing. And so we're very thankful to each of them for giving us permission to be able to do our jobs. And looking forward, so the DEC has sent a letter of intent to the Catskill Center, and it looks like they will award and a contract to the Catskill Center for the next 5 years, so CRISP, which is great. And in that, we're looking at hiring additional staff to help us to do the high priority work that we're trying to do. And that would include an aquatic invasive species coordinator and a seasonal aquatic strike team. So they would be doing rapid response or be doing early detection and rapid response on a lot of the sites that we haven't been able to get to in the last few years. Dan Snyder is our terrestrial invasive species coordinator, and he'll be working with the strike team like he was with the Catskill strike team that we had through that grant. They'll primarily be working on early detection and rapid response species. We'll continue to have a contractual line, and I expect that we'll continue to release requests for proposals to be able to find other organizations that we could subcontract with to do some of the high priority work that we need to get done that we can't do with our own staff to meet our CRISP priorities. Also, we'll be hiring a half-time volunteer and outreach coordinator. It will be half-time with CRISP, and I think the Catskill Center will, it will be a shared position with the Catskill Center. So it'll be a person that will help us to recruit and retain volunteers, and to help us to do the outreach that we are doing every day. So we're looking forward to that. So those are some of the things that we have coming up, and we're really looking forward to it, and thankful to DEC for supporting this program as they have for a number of years. It's really important that we're working in the Catskills since it is such a ecologically important area. So I think that's my last slide, and I'm going to stop sharing. And then I want to introduce our speaker. And Maria, if you wanted to start sharing your screen, you could do that. So I'm pleased to have the opportunity to introduce Maria Moscali. She's the New York State DEC Forest Health Specialist. She'll discuss beech leaf disease. Beech leaf disease affects and kills beech tree species, and it's very important that we know about it. It's associated with a nematode and is spreading in New York State. This is the latest threat to beech, and it can kill the trees. For the past 15 years, Maria has worked with forest health problems such as beech leaf disease, hemlock woolly adelgid, emerald ash borer, spruce decline, and many others. Maria earned her bachelor's degree in forest biology at the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, and is a certified arborist with the International Society of Arboriculture. Welcome, Maria, and please proceed with your presentation as soon as you're ready.
Sorry, I had muted myself.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were still getting ready. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
there
you
go.
can see my presentation? Okay.
I can. Great.
Okay, great. See it? I'm unmuted. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Moscali here from DEC Forest Health. I am going to give you an overview of the beech leaf disease findings in New York, go over the monitoring and research efforts that DEC has been working on, and show you how to identify beech leaf disease and its lookalikes. I will answer all the questions at the end. So the importance of American beech. American beech trees are an important component of the northern hardwood forest type, which makes up more than half of the forested land in New York. Wildlife such as black bears, squirrels, mice, turkeys, and many others rely on beech nuts as a main source of energy due to their high protein and fat content. Predators such as owls, coyotes, and others are also affected by beech mast indirectly when their small mammal food source dwindles. Beech trees in New York have been in decline from beech bark disease since the 1960s, and now beech leaf disease is the latest threat. It can kill mature trees in 6 to 10 years and younger trees in just a few years. Loss of beech would cause changes in forest structure that would affect the whole ecosystem. In North America, beech leaf disease was first found in Ohio in 2012. It has been observed spreading outward from there since. In New York, DEC Forest Health first started hearing reports of striping on leaves and thinning beech canopies in 2017. We started tracking it as beech leaf disease in 2018. At that time, the only detections were in the most southwestern portion of the state. Each year since, we've seen a significant expansion of the disease range. In 2019, there was a large expansion in Western New York, and we found it all the way across the state on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley. Last year in 2020, we again saw a large jump in area with a positive find in central New York, as well as significant increased area in Western New York. This year, there was expansion throughout the southern New York counties. We received the most public calls and emails from Westchester and Suffolk counties, where it is widespread. There were 2 additional central New York counties also added. Since beech leaf disease has only recently been recognized, its biology and vectors are not well understood. There is still much unknown and research is ongoing. Research by CARTA found that the foliar nematode Lidolenchus crenati mccannii causes beech leaf disease symptoms. They inoculated healthy American beech seedlings with a nematode solution before bud break. Leaves that developed from these inoculated wounded buds exhibited symptoms of beech leaf disease. These leaf symptoms include darkening between the veins, puckering, crinkling, and thickening. It is unknown whether the nematode causes all of the damage or whether it associates with a pathogen such as a virus, bacteria, or fungus. The cause of its spread is also unknown. Birds and/or humans are two of the theories. In New York, samples of beach tissue were analyzed for L. carnati at the Cornell Plant Disease Diagnostic Clinic for both detection and research purposes. For detection, nematodes are confirmed each time beach leaf disease is found in a new county. On Long Island, Cornell Cooperative Extension confirmed the nematode on European and Oriental Beach. All other detections in New York have been on American Beach. For research, samples of beach tissue were analyzed to study the life cycle of the nematode. This information could be used to better understand the nematode's role in beach leaf disease and could also be used in determining the best time of year to treat the trees. There are others doing studies on the effectiveness of treatments. Here you can see some of the results from last year's sampling, which mostly happened from April through November. Live nematodes were found in the leaves April through September, and most of the nematodes were found in July. Nematode eggs were also found in the leaves, mostly in November and July, and also a few in June. Live nematodes were found in the buds in November, and nematodes were not found in the twigs at any time. Detection surveys. Visual surveys are conducted each year to identify infested stands and map the spread of beach leaf disease. For each survey, beech trees are examined for symptoms of beach leaf disease and tallied as positive or negative. Severity of symptoms is then ranked. Data is collected using the Survey 123 app on a smartphone with a custom BLD survey form designed by DEC Forest Health. This form is based on the Tree Survey app developed by Cleveland Metro Parks and the U.S. Forest Service. The goal is to collect compatible data that can be compared to and used in conjunction with the data from the surrounding states. All of the positive and negative survey results from 2021 can be seen in this map here. We surveyed for beach leaf disease in most counties this year. Our final data set will also include submissions from IMAP and other public reports. Spot expansion, tracking local spread. This was a small study we did to track the local spread of beach leaf disease in the forest. Last year, we flagged and mapped about 190 symptomatic trees. This year, there were 940 newly symptomatic trees to flag and map. It is a Maple Beach ash cherry stand, and most of the symptomatic trees were small understory beech. It spread very quickly through the understory. As you can see here, in just 1 year, the area of infested trees increased from about 1 acre to 4.6 acres. Mitigation. This was another small study to research whether cutting infested trees would stop the spread of beach leaf disease. It was hoped that the nematodes in the cut trees would dry out. Last year, symptomatic trees were found by visual survey, cut, and left to decompose on site. When the site was revisited this year, there were newly found symptomatic trees. This suggests the trees could be infested before displaying outward symptoms. It could be possible to have better results by cutting a buffer of non-symptomatic trees around the symptomatic. More research would have to be done to determine the size of the buffer and whether it would be helpful. Plot monitoring. A network of monitoring plots was established to assess the symptom progression of beach leaf disease and the change in stand characteristics as the disease progresses. From 2019 to 2021, plots were established across New York using a protocol provided by Cleveland Metro Parks. This is similar to the FIA plot protocol the Forest Service uses. The stands are mixed hardwoods with beech as a main component. Data collected includes basal area, slope, aspect, tree species, DBH, crown class, overall dieback, dead branches, severity of beach leaf disease symptoms, and severity of scale and nectaria symptoms. A range of BLD severity was measured as the plot sites vary from heavy symptoms, light symptoms, and no symptoms. The data is currently being used by Cleveland Metro Parks and the U.S. Forest Service to conduct a multi-state analysis showing the extent to which beach leaf disease, beech scale, and beech bark disease are established in the forest surrounding the Great Lakes. For more information, you can visit our BLD webpage at this location or Google NYS DEC BLD. Thanks to our partners, without their work, we would not have been able to complete all these objectives. Now I will be going over beach leaf disease identification and lookalikes. Symptoms of BLD generally progress from the bottom of the canopy upward, but can be found randomly throughout. Likewise, it is found in the understory before the overstory. Early symptoms include the darkened striping between the leaf veins. Later, heavy banding can cover most of the leaf surface. This will impact the tree's ability to photosynthesize. After a few years of being infested, leaves will become deformed, chlorotic, and have a thickened, leathery texture. The ideal survey time is late May through October. Here you can see the banding at leaf out and also in the fall. Seasonal symptom progression. Vogue 2019 examined the seasonal symptom progression of beech leaf disease. They found that the critical time period for leaf damage occurs sometime prior to bud break. BLD symptoms are apparent at bud break and they do not progress throughout the growing season. Asymptomatic and low severity leaf symptoms did not expand over the season, although they did see chlorotic and necrotic tissue develop. High severity leaves often developed extensive necrosis and occasionally chlorotic tissue before falling as early as June. Here you can see low severity and high severity symptoms on the same branch with only the low severity leaves still on the branch in October. The banding versus the necrotic deformed leaves. This is something to keep in mind when doing research, but for detection purposes, the ideal survey window is still late May through October. When in doubt, please report. At minimum, please send location information, including GPS coordinates if possible, number of trees looked at, and number of symptomatic trees, and good clear photos. The best diagnostic photos of BLD are taken from below to show the banding up through the light. Negative data is good data. We want to know where the trees aren't showing symptoms as well. So if you are looking at a stand and you don't see symptoms, please report that also. You can report through IMAP or send an email to foresthealth@dec.ny.gov. Beech leaf disease symptoms are variable, so I'm now going to show you several more examples of symptoms as well as other beech problem lookalikes you could encounter. The next few slides will show the symptoms as they progress over the years. The first symptoms that appear are the banding. It will go from light banding to heavier banding and could cover the whole leaf. Symptoms then progress to puckering, curling, chlorosis, and necrosis. At the latest stages, leaves will be deformed, leathery, and possibly shrunken. Here are BLD symptoms at leaf out. You can see light banding, heavy banding, and some necrosis and curling. Here are leaves showing symptoms into the fall. Other beech problems you may encounter on beech include erinium patches, aphid damage, and anthracnose. Symptoms are also very variable on these issues and can look very similar to BLD in some cases. Remember, it is always better to report even when unsure and make sure to get good, clear photos. Erinium versus BLD. The first lookalike that might be confused with BLD is the erinium patch caused by Areophid mites. It is similar to BLD in that the damage is a gall, which is the tree's response to the organism. For the erinium patch, there will be a felt-like area on the surface of the leaf, and there might be some puckering on the other side. Most of the time I see light spotting like this, but in more severe cases, there can be some striping like this. BLD doesn't have that felt-like patch, and the thickened area takes up the entirety between the veins. Aphids versus BLD. The next lookalike is aphid damage and leaf curling. You can see here that the aphid curls are a much tighter curl on that part of the leaf, whereas BLD curls are an overall distortion of the whole leaf curling. Also, if you look closely at the back of an aphid damaged leaf, you might see old aphid casings. Here are more photos of that aphid damage and that tight curl. Beech anthracnose versus BLD. The final lookalike we're going over today is anthracnose, which on beech looks like patches of necrotic tissue, usually at the end with the tip, but it could be towards the side. BLD necrotic tissue can be in areas along the side or striping. So that's it. Here's the sources that I've cited and taken photos from. I can now open it up to any questions. You can put them in the chat, or you can turn off your mute and just ask them.
Thanks, Maria. It's really informative. It's really important that we can recognize the species and that we can report it through IMAPs. I don't think it's been observed in the Crisp region, correct?
That is correct. We did have a report in Schoharie County, but when we investigated that further, we did not find any evidence of beech leaf disease at that time. So we'll just keep looking. But yes, and we did, as you could see on the map, we did survey throughout the state. Okay.
Can you see the chat, Maria?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a question from Elizabeth. Would you be interested in tracking status of beaches in bordering areas in the adjacent states, for instance, Bergen County, New Jersey? Since we are DEC, we only survey in New York. We don't survey outside of New York. However, we do try to survey in areas like near the borders here. Let me go back to my survey map from this year if I can. Slowly. Sorry. Should be the next one. So as you can see here, there were surveys done near the border down here. Does that answer your question, Elizabeth?
Yes, that does answer my question. As I'm most interested in, a lot of these diseases, as we have a geographic or political border, the diseases don't care too much about that.
Exactly.
It doesn't really mean, oh, I'm now in New Jersey versus New York.
Exactly. And then so sometimes like other states have different approaches to some of the forest health issues that we're dealing with. And some states do less than we do sometimes, and then they can just come over into our border. It's true. Yeah, I think there might be some regulations with moving nursery stock across the border, but I'm not entirely sure. That's more of a Department of Ag and Markets.
I haven't seen that too much, to be
Okay,
honest. Great, well, thank you.
thank you. Okay, so the next one is from Shannon. In the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned American Beach makes up a huge percentage of trees in New York. Can you repeat that number statistic? Yes, actually, I have those numbers even more specifically. Let me just pull that up. Let's see. I'm just pulling up my report to see if I have more specifics. I can't find it right now, but I think that the beech maple, birch, northern hardwood forest type actually makes up at least 50% of the forest type in New York. So that is like a huge percentage. Let me check one more spot. I might be able to find that data. Our webpage has a lot of information. Let's see. Yeah, so sorry, I don't have more specific numbers than that, but I think that forest type is about 50%. Does that answer your question, Shannon? Yes, okay, great. Next one is from Steve Pearson. Hi, Steve. What are the potential vectors for rapid and widespread dispersal? Okay, so yeah, so that is one of the things that we don't exactly know. But some of the potential vectors could be birds. There are people doing research on whether birds could possibly be spreading it. And now I can believe that. So like some of these areas of infestation are just in the middle of the woods, and you get there and you just wonder, how did this even get there? It's like, it's just in the middle of the woods. I mean, a lot of these other places, like especially in like Westchester, you know, people, again, that's the other one, people could be spreading it on their shoes. And that also makes sense, because they'll be like heavily along heavily used trails. And so maybe people are just spreading it on their shoes from one area to another. And then, but then there's these other areas are just in the middle of the woods, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. So it could be a combination of birds and humans. What we've been doing when at DEC Forest Health, when we go and survey an infested site, we use bleach on our shoes after, in hopes that that could help not spread it. But since there's so much unknown, we don't even know if they are being spread that way or not. Does that answer your question, Steve? Hopefully. The next question is from Tony. Some animal parasites are nematodes and can be treated with dewormers. Are there ongoing studies injecting parasitides into injected trees? Yes, there are tree care companies that are doing experiments. I know that one company is using triage, emamectin benzoate, and they are treating trees with that. And they claim that they're seeing fewer nematodes in the trees that are treated. So, but since this is such a new problem, there hasn't been enough time, there hasn't been enough time to thoroughly investigate the treatments yet, to do to do a proper approval. Because of course they have to go through like intense studies to for it to be approved on the label in order to use it for this. But yes, they are doing studies on it. You can actually, even in some areas, you can hire an arborist to like inject your trees. It just may or may not be a waste of money, depending on the results of that. So they're not approved, they are doing it. Yeah. Okay, next question is from Ryan. Has this been fatal to large stands of beech where the disease originated? So it was they first observed it in Japan on Japanese beech, and no, it is just a minor thing there, which is actually common with invasive species. You know, wherever invasive species are wherever they're native to, those trees and plants have co-evolved over all of these years to be able to deal with each other. And it's just when something is introduced into a new area that our trees have not co-evolved, so they're not able to deal with it in the same way. So no, we're only finding it to be fatal here so far. Yeah. Okay, the next question is from Chris. If humans can spread it in contaminated mud on shoes, deer could as well. Yes, that makes sense. Deer could, if that is a possible mode of spread, then yeah, deer could as well. That makes sense. But yeah, we don't even know if it is for sure being spread that way. There's so much unknown. Like, I mean, we know that the nematode is associated, but we don't know if it's the primary cause of damage or if it's associating with like a bacteria or virus or fungus. And we also don't know if it's associating with an insect. Like there possibly could be an insect that's transporting it. And maybe there's a bird transporting the insect that's transporting the nematode. Those things are possible and are being looked into. Okay, the next question is from Tom. The interstate movement of nursery stock is regulated by AGM. Nursery stock coming into New York State must have a phytosanitary certificate. Awesome, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. Next question is from Robert. How is the characteristic leaf banding produced? Is it a consequence of the nematode feeding, or is it a disease or mold that sets in as a result of the feeding? Okay, so the leaf banding is a gall. So it is the tree's response to the nematode. I guess the nematode feeding would it be? So yeah, so the tree produces it as a result. And again, we don't know if there is a disease or a mold associated, but they have said that the banding is a gall response to the nematode. Okay, so that any more questions? We've gotten to the end of the chat. Does anyone want to speak up or type more in? Or
Yes.
anything else to review?
If somebody wanted to unmute themselves, they could ask a question if they have.
And I can also go back. I can further clarify anything that is here.
Maria, is it spreading faster in southeastern New York or western New York, or do you have a sense of that, like the more recent sightings?
So I don't know how fast it spreads in different areas. We have only been doing the local spread studies in central New York so far in forested settings. However, I get the most public calls and emails and IMAP reports from downstate. Now, of course, there's the most people down there. But it has been found, like we've been like it's so widespread throughout like Westchester and Suffolk County now. And it's hard to say if more people are just reporting it than they do in Western New York. I mean, there's going to be so many factors, like, amount of beach and, how isolated it is. Like if it's just like in a forest, maybe it's not spreading as much as when there's like people like tracking it all the time. I guess that's hard to say, but we are getting significantly more reports of it from downstate. I mean, because I'd have to do like with any research study, like I would love to do the spot expansion study in all the different areas, like do it in the forest in Western New York, Central New York, and downstate, and then do it in an urban area in each of the areas, and then compare them. I feel like that's what would like really have to be done. Ohio has been dealing with this the longest, and they had like a long-term plot study going on anyway before beach leaf disease even showed up, and they had just already been measuring plots. And through this plot study, they were saying that in the urban fragmented areas, it was spreading like 17 kilometers per year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's what they said from their study. We
Looks
got
like
another
we just got a
question.
new question. Yep.
Yes, from Tony. Is the disease killing trees just by causing massive leaf damage and drop and sheer lack of nutrients from the chlorophyll, or is it also found in the cambium and affecting nutrient movement within the branches and roots? That is such a good question that we do not know the answer to. That's again, like since we've only been dealing with this a few years, there's so much unknown still. That is a main question. So from our little mini study so far, we have, and also from what I've heard from other people's studies, is it has not been found in like the twigs and tissues of the trees yet. We have found it, and others have found it in the leaves and the buds. However, the thing that we don't know is it associating with a disease like a wilt that could be like it could be vectoring like a wilt disease that could be affecting the nutrient movement through the cambium. That's something that I wonder as well. These are questions that still need to be researched. We're not sure, is the nematode causing all of the damage or is it something else? And yeah, and is it just because it's affecting photosynthesis? I don't know, but yeah, so these are things that need to be further researched as well. Okay, and another question from Elizabeth. How are younger trees handling the disease? Are they more resistant? Does it make sense to halt new plantings, or should we continue to plant in hopes we have less of an issue in the future? Okay, so unfortunately, the younger trees die even faster. Mature trees can die in like 6 to 10 years, but the smaller trees can die in just a few years, and it spreads like rapidly. Like from our studies, like it was like spreading very rapidly through the understory and the younger trees, because it attacks like the bottom of the tree first, like it goes from the bottom upward. So they're not more resistant. Does it make sense to halt new plantings? I don't know, maybe. I hate to say that. I mean, I like to say continue to plant in hopes that we have less of an issue in the future. I mean, I guess I would say, as with anything, you would not only plant beech trees. So, if you were doing a planting and you had a variety of trees and maybe you had a couple of beech in there in hopes that, a treatment could be found, although those trees might have to be treated for the rest of their lives then perhaps. And yes, unfortunately, it does affect European beaches the same way. We're finding it just like since most of our surveys on our American beach, just because that is the most common beach that we have in New York, and also because a lot of our surveys have just been on state land. But of course, there's a lot of planted European beach. People have reported it many times on European beaches. They also did find it in the Bayard Cutting Arboretum on the Oriental, and I think it was, which did I say? I think it was Oriental and European, but it might have also been Japanese. Let me just check my notes. Hold on one second. Oh yeah, they found it on European and Oriental Beach at the Arboretum. Yeah, unfortunately. So, I mean, hopefully for planted trees, we can figure out a treatment. For forested trees, I mean, I guess the only hope for that is if we can figure out some sort of silvicultural process, silvicultural practices that could maybe slow it down. It's unfortunate. Anyone else? So remember, if you think that you've seen it, please report to IMAP or email foresthealth@dec.ny.gov. I can put my email in the chat. It's just my name, maria.moscoli@dec.ny.gov. If you guys wanted to email me directly about this or other forest health issues. I'm based out of Syracuse, but I do work all over the state.
Maria, thank you so much for your presentation. It's been really informative, and hopefully it gives people a new appreciation and understanding of what beach leaf disease is and what to look for. I hope everybody's inspired to go outside and they could enter a not detected record for beach leaf disease if they are looking around in their local woodlot or forest and they don't find it. So thanks so much for your presentation, Maria.
Thanks for having me.
And if you could stop sharing, then
Okay,
we can,
yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thanks again, Maria. I know you have to get going, but thanks for your presentation. That's great. So it's great to have that presentation. Like I said, I hope everybody goes outside as soon as we're done with this meeting and looks at the beech trees around them, and they can report whether they see beech leaf disease or not, and hopefully it's not. Next, we're going to move on to partner updates. And first off, we'll start with Tom Allgaier. He's from the New York State Department of Ag and Markets, and I know he's going to update us about spotted lanternfly. So buckle in, brace yourselves. Go ahead, Tom, when you're ready. It looks like your screen's coming up.
Just having a little issue with my computer. There we go. So wish I had better news, but this is going to be a little rough. Anyway, I'm Tom Allgaier, the Invasive Species Coordinator with New York State Ag and Markets. For you that don't know me, I work across the state. Anyway, jumping right into spotted lanternfly. As you know, it was found in New York last year for the first time, and here's the updated map, which really isn't as updated as I would like it. You can see it has spread as far as one county in Indiana, 2 counties in Ohio, 1 county over here in Connecticut. But generally it's basically spread continuing outward from Berks County, Pennsylvania since 2014. Currently there's basically 11 counties in New York What's not showing up on the map is a population in Broome County that were several hundred insects, and then also multiple locations in Westchester. But the Westchester finds have only been one life stage. So Westchester is not quite, it's not highlighted in blue yet, but soon. But I'll get to that. So the Conklin area in Broome County is where that population of several hundred was found. Like I said, multiple locations in Westchester. We've also found it in the Hudson Valley, in Orangeburg, Newburgh, and Port Jervis, and also in Ithaca, a very small location in Ithaca, which is why Tompkins County is lit up as blue. It's on the Cornell campus, and we continue. We've removed trees. Well, the city forester has removed trees. We've treated trees, and then we've gone back and surveyed, and that area seems to be being managed pretty well. So some of the new locations that we're keeping an eye on are Nassau and Suffolk County. Suffolk County especially being concerning because it's close to the grape growing region there. We've had multiple single detection locations in both Nassau and Suffolk County. In Nassau County, it's primarily along the southern coast of Nassau, along some of the beaches, and also the western border with Queens. But again, no populations, just single one-offs. And the photo here is kind of significant. You can see a female laying a new egg site. It's pretty white when it's first laid. It very quickly fades to kind of that tannish brown. Looks almost like putty or mud. And if you look to the right, the top right corner of the photo, you can see that, that there's great color variation in the egg masses. Egg masses are just now being detected throughout the state, basically from the Hudson Valley down to New York City. We're finding egg masses at this time, and they'll continue to lay eggs until the first heavy frost, which will kill off the adults. So we're kind of in that life stage area now. I think most of you know what the issues are as far as, it could be a forest pest when it comes to some maples, particularly red maple and silver maple and walnut. But it's also, it'll damage and destroy some of our high value New York State agricultural crops like grapes, apples, hops, blueberries, raspberries. It's also a nuisance pest. As you can see here on the right, there's a black sooty mold grows on the honeydew that the insect when they feed, their excrement is called honeydew. It's very sugar sweet rich. So the sooty mold grows on that, and it'll coat everything below in this black sooty mold. So it's a nuisance pest, it's a forest pest, it's an agricultural pest. It's just all around not an invasive species we want here, but we're currently dealing with. Some of the indicators, you'll find tree of heaven, which is its primary host. It can complete its life cycle in other trees, other plants, but tree of heaven is consistently its favorite host. So in disturbed areas, construction areas, along this rail line here in the photo on the right, you'll find tree of heaven, particularly young tree of heaven, or if they've been cut back and there's tender new growth, they're definitely attracted to that tender new growth. And again, sooty mold, what it looks like in the environment, not on a sidewalk. Excuse me. You can see it here on the foliage of this plant and how that would inhibit chlorophyll production and photosynthesis, and it would be detrimental to the plants that way as well. So what can you do? You can really survey right now. You're not going to see the nymphs as on the left side there, but you'll still see the adults. Like here, you can see these two on a Lanthus tree. You can see the little notch at the base of the leaf. That's one way to determine whether it's the leaflets are from a tree of heaven or if it's a black walnut or a sumac. Only the tree of heaven are going to have that little notch at the base of the leaf, just above the petiole. The top insect is pretty much pointing to the notch in the leaf there that I'm talking about. So you can survey, you can report them to the reporting tool that we have set up in Survey 123, or you can report them through IMAP invasives. One other thing to be considering, considered of hitchhikers. You can see the one on the door pillar of this vehicle here. I know it could easily just fly in that open window, or if that door was open, hop inside. They're more likely to hop. They are plant hoppers. They're more likely to hop than they are to walk or fly, but they are fairly good flyers. But in a short period, short term, they're very good hoppers. They're kind of difficult to catch individually because they do hop pretty well. On the right side there, that's really what we're looking for now is egg masses. They're attracted to any rusty metal, particularly flat surfaces. Any flat surface exposed to the environment outside, they will lay eggs on. Anything's fair game if it's not moving, but particularly have an affinity to protected areas like the underside of this taillight housing on this tractor trailer. Underneath objects where they're protected, behind the bark, peeling bark of trees, things like that. So it's quite hard to survey for. As I mentioned about reporting, you can report it through IMAP invasives or to the New York State Ag and Markets reporting site, which is just spotted lanternfly at agriculture.ny.gov. For more information, you can always visit the Ag and Markets website, and also the Cornell Integrated Pest Management site has the updated maps, and there's quite a bit of information there as far as what pesticides are currently approved for use in New York State, or you can always email me. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it, John. I wish I had better news. And it is, I can't say it's in your prism, but it's in the eastern part of Ulster County in Highland. We've detected positives there, but that's still in Lower Hudson prism, but it's right on the border of CRISP.
Yeah. Actually, some of the sites that you have in Port Jervis are in CRISP.
Okay.
And anything west of Route 209 is in CRISP. So you have a couple sites there, sounds like.
Yep.
That you're dealing with. So thanks for that update, Tom. I appreciate all that information and hope everyone is keeping their eyes out and will report when they see spotted lanternfly. We're gonna move on. Next, we have Ryan Coulter from DEC, who's going to be giving us an update about northern snakehead. And you said that you had some slides you wanted to show, Ryan?
Nope, no slides. I'm not prepared.
Oh, you don't have slides, right? That's what
Yeah.
you said. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to start by sharing Region 4's fisheries update. Chris Van Maren had a couple things to share. They conducted some electrofishing surveys in the same places on the Delaware River that they did last year and turned up no fish, which is, I guess, good news. There was no new eDNA work. There were 2 new captures this year, one on Ray Turner's eel weir on the East Branch, Delaware, and the other was just recently on September 19th, a 27-inch northern snakehead fish was caught in an eel weir 1 mile south of Narrowsburg. So it's interesting that they're kind of turning up in there. When I think of a northern snakehead, I just don't think of them in that kind of water, but they're moving up and trying to seek out different areas. It's my belief. So that kind of moves me on to our region, or my region that I cover. I'm a fisheries biologist that handles Region 3 fisheries. And we had an angler report on August 16th this year saying that he caught a snakehead out of the Bashakill Marsh. This came into our general inquiries line, and we often get these from the Bashakill because there's native bowfin in there, so it's often misidentified. But sure enough, I opened up that email that Monday morning, and it was a snakehead, and confirmed by the picture. The Bashakill Marsh, as most of you know, is the largest wetland in southeastern New York. It's roughly 2,000 acres. It's a tributary to the Neversink River, which then leads to the Delaware River. It looks like perfect snakehead habitat, in my understanding. So it was definitely of concern. But again, it is an angler report, so we haven't captured one yet. We did hang up signs to notify us if they do catch a snakehead around the Bashakil. We had to send out a press release. Then we followed up with multiple days of electrofishing to try to capture northern snakehead. These were daytime sampling events. We did not turn up any northern snakeheads. On September 18th, that same angler caught another northern snakehead. It's pretty, must be one maybe lucky angler. I don't know. It's just pretty crazy that the same angler caught another one. On September 21st, our fisheries unit conducted nighttime electrofishing out on the Bashakil. Typically, our sampling efforts are better at night for fish sampling in general. That effort turned up no northern snakeheads as well. The following day on the 22nd, eDNA work was conducted, 23 samples total. This was done by our DEC invasive species unit with Stephen Pearson and US Fish and Wildlife Service. And they're hoping to get those results the end of October. So that's really all I got. Like I said, we haven't captured one yet. They are angler reports, a little suspicious to some degree, but you never know. So that's really all I got. Hopefully they don't establish in the Bashakil. A place like that, I think eradication would be off the table. The place is ginormous. It isn't like our previous snakehead effort down in Ridgeberry Lake, where it was kind of a contained area. So I guess stay tuned. We'll keep you posted if we do, on the eDNA work and we capture any.
Thanks, Ryan. So do you think that that they moved up, or I guess there were two fish there at least, so they moved up the Neversink to the Bashakil? Neversink is a tributary of the Delaware.
Yeah, I would think that they would either move up there seeking out ideal habitat, or it was some kind of release,
Mhm.
which I guess is always possible. Those would be the two options.
Are there other, I guess thinking ahead, like looking forward, the Bashakil is a huge wetland, like you said, and a really valuable area ecologically. Are there other areas like that that are off some of the tribs of the Delaware that we would really be concerned with, or you'd really want people to be looking for snakeheads?
Boy, I wish I did more homework and really looked at all those tributaries. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't.
Okay, just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good question. I'm sure there's other spots if they're just kind of moving up and trying to seek out these areas. It'd be interesting to see, especially when
Right.
they're already in these large, the Chesapeake, the Delaware. I mean, who knows? Hudson could be next. And I don't know. I'm no expert on them by any means, and I don't know if they've had the impact in some of these waters that they thought they would, or they're just kind of living with the other fish. I don't know. Yeah.
But they really prefer these wetlands, backwater habitats, and things like
Yeah,
that. And that's
definitely seems an area where they could thrive. Yep.
yeah, definitely. Thanks for the update, Ryan. I really appreciate you joining in today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me. And if anybody has any other questions, they can reach me at my DEC email I could provide.
Yeah, and if anybody did have a question for if Tom's still on, or Ryan, and they wanted to unmute themselves and ask the question, feel free to do that. Give you a couple seconds. If not, we're gonna move on to Jeff O'Hanley, who's from the Otsego County Conservation Association.
Thanks, John. Appreciate getting a couple of minutes here. And just for those of you who don't know, OCCA, Otsego County Conservation Association, is a private, not-for-profit environmental organization based in Otsego County. Just a quick update. We're in the third year of a 3-year DEC AIS spread prevention grant. We've been focusing, the the grant we wrote was for early detection and rapid response, focusing in particular on water chestnut and European frogbit. And we had picked those mainly because at the time we wrote the grant, water chestnut was still known to only a few locations in Otsego County, and European frogbit was kind of brand new, found in just one location here, though we knew it was kind of knocking at the door, kind of west and north of us. We've been focusing on surveying water bodies. The grant also helped support some ongoing water chestnut removal efforts in Goodyear Lake, which is, I guess, sort of our granddaddy infestation here, as well as efforts over in Silver Lake, which is also the lake that, in addition to the water chestnut, was the one site that had the frogbit. So we've had folks out surveying different water bodies. We've been doing our removal efforts, and I guess what I would say is we have sort of a good news, bad news sort of thing on this. Good news is that in this time, we've surveyed well over 40 different water bodies. Actually, surveyed a lot of those this year alone in particular. But we've only turned up one other population of European frogbit. That one is at Clark Pond in Springfield, which is adjacent to Otsego Lake. We've had multiple removal efforts over there. And the good news on that one is that the population is still small, and surveys in the area indicate that it has not escaped into Otsego Lake at this point. And our surveys have not turned it up anywhere else at this point. But again, Silver Lake, which is well established, I would say bigger than we thought when we started, but also it's not overgrowing, I guess I would say there. Bad news is we are now up to 15 known water chestnut sites in Otsego County. And I suppose some of those discoveries are simply because we've been out looking for them. I would also say that some of those infestations have clearly been there for a number of years based on the size that we've seen. The other bad news is that we found this year in particular, our infestation at Goodyear Lake really seemed to boom. Instead of, the last few years, we're finding small patches scattered here and there, and we spend most of our pulls kind of paddling back and forth looking for them. This year, in August in particular, we started finding large patches, 10 feet across, and more alarming, we found that it has sort of escaped some of the quiet water areas where it seemed to be confined, and has kind of crept further down toward the main body of the lake. So we're definitely a little alarmed about that. And I would say there are a couple of reasons for that in particular. One is that this year we seem to have much higher water levels on the lake. And there are some areas that I think in the past we had trouble accessing due to low water and deep mud. So several inches of water and several feet of mud. This year, the water being higher, we were able to get in there more, and we were able to find probably where some of those plants had been hiding out. We also found that things like pickerel weed and arrowhead arum that were growing in those areas were not growing there this year. So the stuff was much more evident. The other thing that we found is that I think over the last few years, we've seen a decrease in participation. So we rely a lot on volunteer efforts. And I think that as the amounts of plants over the 15 years or so that we've been doing this decreased, people kind of said, I don't have to worry about it, and started finding other things to do. So what we're looking to do as we head into 2022 is to really re-energizing the community, particularly around Goodyear Lake. We've got a really active group at Silver Lake right now, and re-engaging all of our lake associations to keep people looking elsewhere, and to get more people in more boats more often. We're also looking into funding options that will allow us to pay for crews to get out on a regular basis as well, and also doing a lot more outreach and education. And I'll also add thanks to CRISP, the DEC, Scriven Foundation, and Tiana Dara Foundation, who all have supported the projects over the few years. And if anybody has questions or advice, I'll take both. So thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for all your hard work in finding these aquatic invasives and also doing removals. And we'll try to help you with our strike team, and hopefully we can work together to get more volunteers. And I'd be interested if people have some connections that could help you or me with some of the lake associations, so that we can make sure that we're doing surveys and helping them to remove some of these invasive species.
Sure thing. Thanks, John.
Does anyone have any questions?
John, this
Yes,
is
Stephen.
Stephen Pearson. I would just caution to pay attention to the timing of your removal efforts and management, and really focus the management prior to that seed maturity and drop.
Yep.
That's by doing that is you'll be able to reduce the population over time, and it's really an important component of the water chestnut control.
Yep.
When you were pulling in August or surveying in August, were the seeds still mature?
They were rapidly getting there. Yeah, there were a lot of, in August, it was a little late, I would admit, because there were a lot of seeds on those plants. We were being very careful not to dislodge them, but I'm sure we lost a few.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
That's a good point, Stephen. Thanks.
Yep.
If there's any other question, jump in, but otherwise, I'm gonna move on to Mitch at IMAP Invasives, and he had some updates.
Yes, thanks, John. Hey everyone, this is Mitch O'Neill with the IMAP Invasives team. So first, I noticed the several mentions of IMAP. I wanted to thank everyone. We really appreciate that. If anyone on the call is new to IMAP Invasives and they're interested in submitting protected records of beach leaf disease or other data, I just wanted to let you know that you can find help resources at our website. And I'll post some links in the chat, but it's nyimapinvasives.org/training. We have some help documents, a link to our YouTube channel where we have brief tutorials as well as longer recorded webinars. And if you get held up somewhere or having issues, you can always email us at imapinvasives@dec.ny.gov. And then I have two quick, they're not really updates, but I guess sort of announcements. One is if anyone's been involved with managing water chestnut over the summer, we've been encouraging people to enter water chestnut holes into IMAP Invasives as treatment records. It's super helpful for tracking management efforts and the effectiveness of those efforts, both at the individual site level and summarized across the state. We have more information on that under our self-guided training materials at nyimapinvasives.org/training. And while we're really pushing for water chestnut holes right now, this concept can really be applied to any other species as well. So this is just a general reminder that you can track treatment efforts for any of our tracked species in IMAP Invasives. So on our YouTube channel, we recently posted a recording of our webinar from last week where we discussed documenting infestations in IMAP Invasives before and after treatments. So I'll post that link too. And then my last thing to say is I just wanted to mention our ongoing citizen science effort where you can sign up for a grid square to survey for spotted lanternfly and tree of heaven. You can sign up for a grid square to check for those species and report to IMAP Invasives. So I want to thank anyone on the call who's been involved with that. So there have been volunteers in CRISP signing up for grid squares and checking for tree of heaven or spotted lanternfly. But there are certainly more areas to check. So if anyone's interested, I encourage you to go to www.nyimapinvasives.org/SLF. And we are also having our next webinar on this on October 27th at 1 p.m. So I'll put some links in the chat. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it. Oh, concerning IMAP invasives, I just want to encourage people to make sure that they include pictures when they submit records to IMAP invasives. It helps for us to confirm records. And I know that there have been a number of records I've seen recently when there aren't pictures, so we can't really tell if it's the species or not, but keep the records coming in. Does anyone else have any announcements or updates that they would like to give? Not hearing any. Last call. Oh yeah, and Mitch agrees with me in the chat. Pictures are very important. He says if you have technical issues attaching photos, feel free to contact IMAP Invasives. So thank you for everyone for giving updates, making announcements, and I'll thank Maria again, although I think she had to sign off to go to another meeting. That was a great presentation to have us learn how to identify and where to look for beech leaf disease. Thanks everyone that's been joining us today for our CRIS Partners virtual meeting. We offer these meetings quarterly and expect our next meeting will probably be in December. I'll share the date on our CRIS listserv and our Facebook page and as an event on our website. So thanks everyone. I hope everyone has a safe and happy fall, and please take care.